My name is Stretch. I am from Scarborough, Ontario. I make hip hop music. It's very much passion of mine, and yeah, trying to take it as far as we can take it. Yeah, for as long as I can remember, I think everyone who's been from the East has just been like very boisterous about it, very excited to let everyone know, just almost obnoxiously. I think also it's kind of maybe not slept on, but maybe a little bit undervalued what they contribute culturally to the scene. You know, like Scarborough, I think has always had a lot of creatives that don't necessarily, I think, aspire to get to the forefront. So everything they do is like very pure in nature. And that's always been, it's been interesting for me to see coming up because I think it gave me a different mentality as far as like what I wanted in the big picture and what I was willing to compromise for it and what I wasn't willing to compromise for it. And that I think is like, it's a microcosm of what I feel like we all need more of in the city, like from a cultural lens for sure. And to that point, I think a lot of that stems from this weird desire. Well, I think anytime you endorse something or you stand behind something, you want it to be successful, regardless of whether it is, whether it's the kid on the block who might have a chance of going to like a big school for athletics or whatever the case may be. Everybody wants to see them succeed. And it's weird in the arts because I'm very much of the belief that quality art isn't necessarily determined by statistical value. You know, I don't think like a good film or a great album is determined by how many people have seen it or heard it, you know? And that I think is one of the tougher things to communicate because I've seen many an occasion where a piece of work could be everything to somebody. Yo, this is my shit. Like and they'll swear by it regardless of how many people know it. But that's very much not the norm. And I think whether it be, I don't know if whether it be publications or just, you know, the everyday person, I think we owe more of that responsibility in speaking up for the projects that we feel like are legitimate. Otherwise, I think we're just gonna continually just run around in this circle of monotony, you know, where everyone's kind of just, we're all hovering close to the line. Nobody's really stepping too far outside of it, and it doesn't really breed, I think, for the best possible outcomes for all of us.
I heard Mandolay in San Tropez, though my babe do reside in San Jose. Make you come my choice like a Vatican. No, the shit isn't nice if the league isn't white. Took a page out of those who paved my way. I'm an agent of shit like Sancho.
You know, I'm from obviously I'm from Scarborough, I'm from Toronto, and it's weird because the ones who have broken through from our city have broken through to the umpteenth degree. Like, and it's been like, it's worldwide, international. And it's almost as if, like, that's all that you can, like, that's it. And like, no, that's not it. There's so many, I equate it to like, let's say a great basketball franchise who may be like top heavy in talent, where they have all superstars, no glue guys, no the second tier, the B tier, the C tier. So now if there's a hiatus and these artists aren't dropping because there's some of the biggest artists in the world, that means now the culture just, it turns to a standstill. Like, no, there's room for everybody. Word to what you were saying, like there's room for the underground, there's room for the middle class, there's room for the open mic, there's room for the 100,000 people in this, like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's space for everyone. And I think that's something that needs to be said more often in particular spaces and particular platforms. That needs to be pushed out. At least that's my opinion. I think taste is curated in the subtleties, you know? So often if you're trying to, and a lot of that I think is also determined by your why. If you come into the game wanting to be just the biggest artist that you can be, period, have the most eyes on your operation, period, then there are gonna be certain things that you can do to kind of curate like a step skipping process. And you can get to certain places quicker. But subsequently in the long term, it's kind of diluting your operation, unassumingly. And for me, it's always just been like, I wanted to have catalog. I wanted to be able to like look back like 10, 15, 20 years in and say, yo, reference any of these. These were all individual journeys, but these are all things that I'm extremely proud of. Like, and I can reference any one of these things, and I can, every time I go abroad or every time I go to make a run, I can put a set list together of like, yo, this is my journey. This is what I did. I had a lo-fi moment, it was incredible. You know, I had a live moment, it was incredible. I had a knocking moment that was incredible. All the while, those are three different, very vast subsections of hip hop. But if you navigate them the right way, because all you ever did was explore different parts of your personality, it's always gonna come through as authentic, you know? And that's just always what I wish to achieve, I think, in the bigger sense. Yeah. Music has kind of been a lifelong journey for me. When I was young, I got put into class. I was classically trained pianist, so I learned pretty much like I was taking conservatory exams every year, every level. When I was in the 5th grade, I got moved into a private music school, and the thing about it was, I was learning music in a very like structured environment, and so it's almost like, and the dope thing about it is it kind of like encourages discipline within you. Like you don't even realize it. It's almost something that's seeping into your subconscious, but that was there. So when I ultimately left the school and I now was kind of forced to navigate on my dolly, so to speak, I was doing so kind of with a level of intention, you know? And even though these are now my own personal interests that I was applying to everything, it kind of helped me navigate. So fast forward to 18 years old, I had an ever-growing love for hip-hop, you know, which a lot of us, I think, start to find in our early teen years, regardless of whatever the branch-off genre we may have. I started to really, really fall for it. And I then started to build like a growing vision for what it is I wanted to achieve. And I had no knowledge on how to record, no knowledge on how to do things independently. I was very blessed that a lot of the guys that I grew up with were actually Congolese musicians, live musicians. So it was a band that I had, they were guitar, bass, keys, and drums. And once I met Nate Smith, who was my recording engineer, we ended up being able to kind of do a lot of trial and error. So it's like we were experimenting when nobody's watching. And so you can really go for the gusto, because like if it doesn't turn into anything, it's fine, you know? And so from the ages of 18 to 22, I ended up working on a project called the Ballpark Tape, which was my my debut. And I put that out, and I called the Ballpark Tape kind of like mom and pop's West Indian food, you know? It's like that hole-in-the-wall restaurant in the ends where anybody who knows it, this is their steady part of their diet. This is what they want, you know what I mean? But, you know, you go past Bathurst, they probably have never heard of it before. But if you were to come to the ends and somebody were to put you on, this is gonna be like an experience for you, same ways. And so now, from the Ballpark Tape to this point, it's kind of sort of being like, okay, well, how do we franchise the mom and pop, you know? And not necessarily, like, not to sound complacent, we're trying to take this as far as we can take it, but for me, you know, I always had like a level of patience when it came to growth. I never wanted to like win it all in one go. I never had a desire to just go from here to here, you know. I felt like everything is kind of developing in its natural course. And because of this mentality, I feel like I was really able to pour into the music in the right ways. You know, I didn't compromise as far as like the sonic chances that I wanted to take. I didn't compromise as far as like the subject matter in which I desired to cover. I didn't compromise as far as the way in which I wanted to speak on records, because, you know, music's forever evolving and there's forever new trends being set. And to just be an enjoyer of music is to be susceptible to the trends and the patterns, you know? And I think it takes like a great deal of discipline to see a vision all the way through, because it'll get deviated a million times before you get to the final destination. And I'm just open and willing and ready for all of it, you know? Like I just really like the one consistency I would say more than anything about my music, that no matter what, it can't compromise throughout the genres and throughout the experimentation, is feeling. It has to have feeling. And feeling, it can be created sonically, can be created audibly, it can be created via what it is you're saying, but it has to be present. And if it's not present, then it's not for me. when I was leaving high school, kind of in and around the inception of my journey, I was a little bit lost as far as, I didn't necessarily know what the next step was. You know that you want to make a life out of this, but what does that even mean? And what does that even look like? And so I was just taking a lot of experimental chances, bouncing around the open mic scene as a lot of us do. And I stumbled upon one organization was having their anniversary show in and around, I want to say this was around April of 2014, I believe. And I said, you know what, let me just go and audition, like what can be the harm? They really ended up enjoying my audition, and a few days later I found out that I booked an anniversary show. And mind you, this was my first involvement with the organization, period. So the show went really well. At the time, I think I got, off the one performance, I got like 113 followers on Twitter, which like them times was just mod. Off of one show, like I just couldn't even fathom. And so subsequently I decided, okay, well, if this community rocks with me, then I want to reinvest back into it. So I didn't even know what that meant necessarily. So what I would just do was, it was a weekly open mic series on the Monday nights. I would just pull up, like just every week. I wouldn't perform every week. I would just pull up and just be in the space, just build my own individual relationships in the room, become a fixture in the room. And then I think maybe like 4 or 5 months into doing this, they just asked me to host just a random one night. So I did. I remember I put a lot into it. Like I thought about, like, I wrote jokes as if I was a comic. Like I was trying like just a bunch of things. And then the following week, because this was a series of guest hosts that they were having, last second, the guest that they had booked didn't show up or wasn't able to come anymore. I think he might have been having car trouble or something. And because I was there, they said, hey, like, would you mind like just running it back? And I said, yeah, for sure. And after that, we had a meeting and they formally asked if I would want to do it moving forward. And that experience was so incredible. I did it for about 4 years, and each and every night, it was so interesting because you really got to see the full spectrum of artists, right? You could see the guys who were on the ground, who you can see that, this is just their outlet on a Monday night. You saw the guys who are literally knocking on the door of industry opportunities. Like, you would put their name on them getting in a writing room. If anybody ever asked you, I would recommend him absolutely. And then you would see the guys who their operation was everything but like famous. Like, they had everything going with them. And it was so just dope to see and mind you, this is across many genres. It's not as if like this was just like a place for R&B or hip hop. In fact, this open mic spot, I think originally originated as a spoken word open mic. And so being able, and to this day, actually crazy enough, as a full circle moment, every vocalist that I had contribute to the Ballpark Tape, my debut project, was artists that I met in that room. And just like artists that I believed in. And it goes back to what we were saying about like the value you see in these things, like they're not statistical, because none of these guys had like motion in that sense. They were all just like for the love, like they were trying to take their operation till whatever, but they're not mass marketers. They're not social media marketers. They don't understand the game of that, but they can write the fuck out of a song though, and I seen it, like, and I knew it, and I thought that's why the Ballpark Tape, I was so proud of it, because it was a collaboration, it was amalgamation. I think music in its purest form is people just bounce it off each other. Like, y'all never be able to see this the way you see this, so I know you're gonna be able to come and contribute something that is just gonna turn this into a different thing. And yeah, man, like I just that experience, like I'm forever grateful for that. That opened my mind up to the possibility of it all, but more than that, it really got me acclimated to being in front of people. Just standing there and just talking, just realizing how low stakes and no pressure it is. There's so many artists I've seen over time who are beasts in the studio, like 2-3 projects in, beasts. Haven't even done their own headline show. When I ask them about it, it's because they almost speak about performance as if it's this grand obstacle to overcome. And I'm like, I think it's all like how you make it. And I think probably it would be, I think it might even be a little ignorant for me to say that I didn't even feel that at one point. But just being able to host and just being able to be in front of 100 people, 40 people, 60 people, just low stakes. Because as the host, nobody really gives a fuck how you're doing. It's kind of like you're just there getting people used to looking at the stage. Like, and that just, I can't even explain it. Like, it was invaluable to me. Like, I really, really attest my growth to that time in life. I give a lot of credit to that time in life. People are gonna let you down. Like, people are gonna fail you, and even in instances where you might not have even expected that much of them, and they'll still cut your legs from under you. But you know, I've always been of the belief that that is never a reason to stop trusting, to stop taking the chance, you know? Because like a pure relationship built in this space is one of the most like incredible things that you can explore, you know? And it'll teach things about yourself. So to deprive yourself of those experiences because you've seen the other side of that, like, man, I've been, and I'm sure we both have, like, I've been to really like the extremes on both ends. And I can sincerely say that the positive very much outweighs the negative, you know? To say that also is to speak from a place of privilege, you know? Because to have somebody come into the game and your first 4 experiences are all extremely negative, it will take the wind out of you, you know? You'll have nothing more to give. And I understand that. But man, to have like true synergy with people, to have true like selfless, like give and take, like that's, man, there's nothing like that. And you'll be able to achieve your greatest heights with that along your side, way more so than you'll be able to travel alone on your dolo. And you know, there's an interesting kind of conversation going around in Scarborough right now of how the language has kind of been appropriated, and it's kind of almost like it's been turned into something that's almost like farcical, you know? And there's a lot of people who kind of take great offense to that, and rightfully so, you know, because it derives from Caribbean culture, you know, whether anybody, you know, likes it or not. There's obviously there's the East African influence at the time via the Somalis, when people say like wallahi and things of that nature, but no doubt about it, you know, the root of that is Caribbean culture. So when I see things like that, I always, like, you always gotta lend an ear to, yo, if this is being offensive to that culture, why is it being offensive to that culture? What's being done to it that's turning it to offensive? And a lot of, you know, kids that I feel like may not be as far along in their self-awareness journey are kind of receiving that as personal slights and are trying to turn it into like a young versus old conversation, you know? And listen, there's no such thing as young versus old, you know? There's the thorough and the unthorough, you know? There's the real and then there's the fake. Like there's never been a division between the two if you've really taken it in. That's why you've seen certain artists in their mid 40s, early 50s still thriving. And then others who, as soon as they're out of their youth, their run is over. And why? Because the foundation of it was not built on the right things, you know? And I think that's kind of something that needs to be like properly addressed. You know, like if somebody's telling you something about the culture in which you're manipulating, your first reaction shouldn't be to feel offended. It should be like, why do they feel like I'm manipulating it? Why do they feel like I'm speaking on it from a negative light? Like, what about that? Or why am I doing that? But, you know, if I'm gonna be fair, how much of us could be told anything between the ages of 16 to 22? You know, it's gonna feel like old heads are just chatting at them. All of this is just perspective and understanding. You know what I mean? Like if I'm ever trying to tell one of the young bulls something, I try to come at them like the right way. You know, I don't want to make it seem like, yo, in my day, because I'm not a my day ass guy. You know what I mean? Like like again, I wanna appeal to everybody. I don't wanna be for the old niggas. I don't wanna be for the young, for the jits. You know, I wanna be for everybody. Like I think anybody with sense wants to. You know, you want to be understood. You want to be heard. You know, and that's just that's my perspective on it. Anyways, yeah. It's what we were saying about just things not being built on the proper foundations. You know, because none of this information is there to make you feel small, you know? It's there to just further push your shit forward, if anything, you know what I mean? Like, why would you wanna, if I was moving just blindly, why would I wanna continually exist blindly and continually make a fool of myself. You know, like it's not my desire, and it's also not my desire to step on anybody. So I listen, man. Listen, nobody is above critique. Nobody is above improvement. Nobody's got this shit figured out to a T. Nobody is at the 100% level, you know? On a good day, you're probably operating at a 62 if we're keeping it a beam. So there's still so much more road to travel, and the only way you're gonna get there is by listening and understanding. Like that's it just always throws me some of the things that people get offended by when it comes to like that. Like why would you feel that? If you're rooted in the right things, if you're sensible in the right things, you would only receive them as positivity necessarily. I don't understand, and I don't want to seem all over the place, but I also understand sometimes people kind of jump out the window with the way that they come at you, you know? So it starts to feel just like insulting, but man, listen, just everybody got to give each other grace, man. Everyone's just trying to figure it out, yo. Keep going. Even if you feel like you're not ready to share it, that's calm. But keep going. Don't stop the operation and fail forward. Yo, the thing you told me earlier about how you felt like, and I appreciate it, how you felt I was able to very much showcase my personality in a particular way. There have been so many, you know, empty rooms, filled rooms that I stood in front of and I fucked up in. Like videos that if I look back at now made me cringe, you know? Like over 15 years of like accumulation to get to that point. Yo, keep failing forward. You know, there's nothing that's so considerable, so heavy of a mistake that you can't bounce back from it, or that you can't build upon from it. If anything, it's gonna teach you more about yourself and more about your process. So I would say try heavy and swing hard. And you're gonna look crazy when you miss, but when you connect, you're gonna hit it out the yard, you know? So that's what I would say about that, yeah. I have a project that's gonna be coming out in the springtime called A Man Like. It's kind of, it's interesting because it ties into a lot of what we were saying. It's sort of like my own personal journey to self-awareness. You know, I think that's a tool that's very underutilized nowadays, and maybe something that we don't necessarily like value. But I've always tried my hardest to, especially via communication, to navigate every way in which I'm coming off to somebody, you know? Because to blindly exist in your own world and to communicate as such, there's a lot of times where you're gonna be stepping on people's toes unwillingly, you know, and unknowingly, and you simply don't have to, you know, like especially if you come from a position of empathy and compassion, you'll find that, and it kind of even speaks to what we were saying earlier about like having your legs cut from under you. A lot of times people just like want to feel safe in a space, and it takes sometimes the littlest effort to help curate that for somebody. This one question can unlock them and make them feel safe in a space. And for me, that's something that I'm always in pursuit of. Self-awareness, self-improvement, like just wanting to get to the better place. Because I feel like the closer I am to full self-awareness, the closer I am to expressing my highest form. And I'm gonna get to where I wanna go if I can express in my highest form. So it's called A Man Like. It'll be coming out in the springtime. And I hope all the good people of Yellowknife will check it out when it comes time. Just over the years, like very much like it's like a Toronto lingo. I don't even want to necessarily put it to Scarborough, but it'll be like, it's almost like sometimes it could even be a greeting, you know? Like, here come John, a man like Johnny. Yo, what are you saying, fam? You know, or oftentimes just describing something I may have going on for like, say for example, I have a different opinion on something. See, a man like me, I wouldn't necessarily go that route, you know? And I just thought, like, it's just an interesting intersection between my journey towards self-awareness and where I've already been, using lingo from where I've already been. And yeah, I just thought I really like the way that it all tied in together. And I think also it speaks to where I'm from, which is always, I would love to be a voice for the ends, which is something that you as an artist don't determine. Whether you're for the people is determined by the people. Like even, it goes back to even my name, Stretch. Like I never gave myself the name Stretch. I was working at a community center, used to pull up early and we would play NBA Street. And at the time I was skinny and I had an afro. Guys started calling me Stretch. And then the kids in the ends link me at the community day center. They hear that, they start calling me Stretch. Yo, in the ends it can go really bad for you. You know, you could have like a Coco on your head, everybody start calling you Coco. And that's just it is what it is, you know? And yeah, I just, when I started like thinking about it all in the grand scheme of it all, I just felt like there's no greater title. And I'm very, very excited for it.